Before we get started, I just wanted to make a quick shout out to Dmitry Ilanov, who left us a 5-star Google review. He said, recently discovered the world of podcasts for myself and came across the Site Shed. All of a sudden, my car trips between jobs have become more productive and more enjoyable. Having listened to a few other podcasts, I love the format of the Site Shed, perfectly structured with lots of actionable advice from the professionals. Unlike many other podcasts, pointless chit-chat is kept to a minimum, and Matt does a good job of helping the guests stay on topic. I'd like to hear more Aussie-based guests on the show and a wider variety of industries. Okay, that's interesting. I've just sent you a message, actually, Dimitri, to hear what type of guests you'd like to hear. I'm very open to those ideas, so thank you very much for your feedback. Guys, if you'd like to leave a review, please go ahead and do so. I will read it out before the podcast, as I just have done with Dimitri's. Anyway, let's jump right in. Hope you enjoy this one. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to Toolbox Talks on the Site Shed podcast. You're joining us today for part 1 of the Scaling Your Business from $500,000 to $5 million series with Mr. Danny Kerr from BT Academy all the way over in lovely Canada. This is episode 1 and it is titled Building Your One-Page Strategic Plan. Folks, if you like what Danny's been talking about here in this podcast, he has very, very generously left behind not 1, not 2, not 10, but stacks of useful resources for you guys to go and get hold of through our resource page. Now, the link is thesiteshed.com/resources, and there's a whole bunch of useful freebies in there for you to get a hold of. Also, if you head across to the show notes for this episode, there will also be a link to that there as well. You can get hold of Danny as well through the show notes there. There's a link to his calendar booking if you want to have a chat with him. And I thoroughly encourage you guys to check out the stuff that BT Academy are doing because they are absolutely fantastic. Anyway, enjoy episode 1, and I look forward to hearing your comments. Today's podcast has been proudly brought to you by Tradie Web Guys. Tradie Web Guys work with tradespeople only on their websites and marketing solutions to help them stand out from their competition. Everything from web design through to SEO, search engine marketing, content creation, you name it, guys. It is a customized solution for trade-based organizations, and it's fantastic. Head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/apply, fill in the form, and let's have a conversation. It'll be the best thing you could possibly do to kickstart 2019 the right way.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Toolbox Talks on the Site Shed podcast. You're joining me today for the first part of a 4-part series, actually, that I'm conducting with my man, Danny Kerr from BT Academy over in Canada. Danny, welcome back to the show.
Matt, thanks for having me.
Danny, you have been on the show previously. We did a really cool series called The Top 3 Mistakes That Trade Businesses Make. That was very well received. And in that series, we talked about attracting the right talent. We talked about lack of focus on gross profit margin. We talked about not prioritizing your time correctly. And today we're coming back and we're talking about, the first part of the series, scaling your business from 500K to 5 million. And I know that's kind of what you guys do over there with BTA. We did a similar series, and for anyone that's interested in this, definitely go check out this series I did with Rob from Prava Group, which was episode 179, 180, 181, which was how to escape the $1 to $3 million nightmare zone. I think it'll be very complimentary. And so in this episode, we're going to be talking specifically about building your one-page strategic plan, which ties in beautifully to an awesome book that I've just read. I don't know if you have this one, Danny, the One-Page Marketing Plan from Alan Dibb. He's an Aussie guy. Have you got that?
I don't have it. No.
Interesting. I've actually just done a book review on it as well. He's been on the show very recently, actually. He was on the show only maybe 10 shows ago. Fantastic book. Really, really simple how they break that down and just put everything on the one page, which is quite what I liked about when you sent this through. I was like, oh, that kind of resonates with me right now. So the episode to follow this one is going to be structuring your company for maximum productivity. The one following that's going to be how to generate rockstar employee applications, which is a absolute friggin' nightmare for everyone I speak to around the world. And then maximizing gross profit in your business, which is going to be the final episode. Are these the topics that you have seen trending lately? Is this why you've decided to choose these?
Yeah, like I mean, we work with a lot of guys, girls who are in this kind of world of 500K to let's even say 10 million, and they're all struggling with the same stuff. It's like we don't really have a plan. We're kind of guessing where we're heading. We don't really have a good structure, so we're in the middle fixing all the pieces. Mm-hmm. We're struggling like hell to find people. So there's a lot that we can put in there, and then the whole like profit bit thing. It's if you grow without understanding the financials of your company, there's no point in growing. Like you'll probably make the same, if not less, but you'll work just as hard, if not harder, to make it. So yeah,
it's interesting. It's a very similar message to the one that Rob talks about. He says, you can get to the 500K mark or the $1 million mark, and he says there's like this dead zone that businesses fall into once they get there in getting from that to the $3 million mark or whatever it is. And he says that's kind of, you think you're doing great and you get there and you're like quicksand and you're like, what the hell's going on here? So I'm interested to hear your take on this. Is that your kind of experience as well?
Yeah, and I mean, it's the classic like contractor trying to learn how to be a business owner, right? When you're below 500K, you can kind of get away with it. You can be an excellent contractor, and you can go do your day to day and probably make decent money, and your hands can be on everything. If the guy doesn't show up, you can go show up for him. If Bill doesn't get paid, you can go talk to the customer and figure it out and do the work to get paid. Like you can do it yourself. But when you start to get bigger than 500K, you start to hit $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. You have to rely on your people. You have to rely on systems. You will not physically have enough time in the day anymore to do the same things you used to do at below 500K, and that's why. And you have to transition from being kind of like a doer of all these things to a builder of awesome systems and a builder of awesome people, and that takes a very intentional change. And without that, you're going to be running. I always call it's like you're driving a little Honda Civic and you're redlining this thing. Like you need a new engine,
right,
to kind of get to the next stage.
So in this episode, in part one, we're talking about building your one-page strategic plan. Now, I've spoken to you in the past, and we've had many conversations over the years. And I suppose I know you guys are really big on strategy and getting that initial foundation set. I speak to heaps of guests on the show, obviously, and a lot of those guys have a very similar, I suppose, mantra in the sense of, if you don't take the time to map out a bit of a strategy and set a bit of a game plan, then how do you know if you're ticking the boxes?
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty keen to hear your methodology around this, because I know that you work pretty very heavily invest in that sort of initial strategy and then building on it and scaling from it.
Totally. Yeah, I think the number one thing is just to think about how people spend their time every week. I mean, it's easy to be busy. It's hard to be busy on the things that actually matter long term, because most of the time you're busy with the things that matter short term, the stuff that matters this week. Getting that, that bill paid so you can pay payroll, getting that customer happy again so they're not going to, post something bad on you on Google reviews, getting whatever it is. There's emergencies that happen every day or every week in a business. And you're usually inclined to want to go take care of those first, which leaves you very little, if not no time to go and think about where you want to be next year. So there's this thing about like, are things high urgency and high, impact? Those are usually the things you spend most of your day in. Or are you spending more time in things that are high impact but low urgency?
Yeah,
that's strategic planning, and by doing strategic planning properly, it'll start to get you at least spending, let's say, 5 hours a week on things that are high impact but fairly low urgency, actually. But again, it's only 5 hours a week, right? So it's getting you in that habit of starting to do that.
Brilliant. So, Danny, do you just want to give us a quick rundown on? I mean, for the listeners that aren't familiar with you, maybe a bit of a story about your background before we jump into this episode, and a little bit about BT Academy.
Sure. Yeah. So I started a painting business when I was 18 years old, just painting houses, residential houses, and taught me a lot. Taught me a lot about myself, about what I was capable of. I enjoyed it a lot. I also tend to work myself to the bone. I was not probably the most skilled person in the room, but I was the most, I would say, hardworking person. That's how I'd always win. I always looked around and been like, I may not, be the best business owner when it comes to being the best at sales or the best at, all these other things. But I was the best at just like working a lot to get my results. And that was how I did it for a couple of years. And when I was running this painting business, I was actually a franchisee. So I was a part of a franchise organization. And over time, I started to kind of get training from the corporate level on how to be better, because I was working 80 hours a week. I'd grown a business to about $1 million, and I was starting to hit a bit of a plateau. And it wasn't really getting any easier to get any bigger. I mean, if I put in 85 hours a week, maybe I could get a little bigger, but it all required my time. So I took a lot of time to reflect on, how do I basically look at, the way I spend my time? How do I delegate to my people? How do I hire better? How do I look at the financials and squeeze a few percent out of, our gross profit margin and things like that? And we started to grow and I started to work less. And I took myself from $1.3 million business right before the recession. And then through the recession, grew it up to about 2 million. Then from there, after 2 years of that, took on a bit more of a corporate position with this franchisor. And I got to help manage about $11 million a year and really see at a corporate level, like, how do you lead through layers? How do you, we had 400 painters producing that 11 million bucks over just 4 months in the summer. So it was quite a small window of time that we produced all that revenue. And how do you build an entire business where everything circulates around having the right people in place, the right systems in place, and you're more the puppeteer of everything? Never did I have time after that to go do an estimate or to paint a house or to even hire a specific painter, right? I had to lead through layers. And that journey and that experience of going right from grassroots day to day, running my painting business to having this massive organization taught me a lot. And it put me in a place now where I get to kind of share that. And we've created a school essentially for entrepreneurs who are in trades, who are in painting and landscaping and renovations and home services. And they're trying to find that exact same solution to their business that I went through just organically and was almost taught. And so I said, screw it, let's teach it ourselves. And now we've created this place where everyone can learn exactly how to scale properly. What are all the phases involved? What are those steps? What are all the processes and procedures? And we provide everything for them. So we have a ton of content, a ton of coaching, and a pretty cool community where everyone kind of knows each other and shares ideas. So
yeah. And I mean, for the listeners out there, obviously I speak to loads of business specialists around the world, and Danny's program I think is definitely up there with one of the best on the planet. And I love how you take that sort of corporate system mentality, break it down, and make it applicable to trade-based organizations, because that's something that is a struggle. And I think a lot of the guys out there, even just getting them to understand and speaking their language with it is a battle. So yeah, I love what you guys are doing over there.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's a wild ride.
So we're talking in this episode about building your one-page strategic plan. Now, I want to hear a little bit, I suppose, about what that entails. I mean, obviously you're going to dive into all this, but I mean, we're talking about a strategic plan. I mean, as I said before, we've had a guy on the show that's talked about the one-page marketing plan. Now I'm trying to figure out how do you get a one-page marketing plan, you get a one-page strategic plan, you get a one-page plan. At the end of the day, you've got an entire book. So, yeah,
I think the general concept behind the idea of one page is just trying to say, hey, let's keep this simple. Because if this is an entire manual, you're probably not going to reference it enough to make it an impact. You're probably going to write it up, get excited in January when you got space, and then hit production and never look at it again. The idea behind this is something you can put on the wall so your team can see it, you can see it, you can reflect on it fairly quickly, and the golden nuggets are kind of there for you. And that's the idea why it's one page. Do you use one page to build the whole thing? No. We had tons of other Excel sheets and ideas and things in the background that we built to make sure that what's on that one page matters, but it's a summary sheet of the entire business and where we're going. So yeah,
that makes sense. All right, let's jump in. So, I mean, what about, I've got a few points here. I know you and Andrea were collaborating on a few different things. You talk about methodology, and I guess that's kind of, what you were just talking about then, that using the bigger picture stuff and then breaking it all down into one simple, easy to keep everyone on track sort of guide.
Yeah, so let's break these down into pieces here. Let's start with the idea of having a goal. Your strategic plan revolves around a goal that you're trying to achieve. And sometimes people say things like, I want to be more successful. I want to have more staff. I want to be less on the tools. And I'm like, those are wants. Those are not goals. To have a goal, you need to have a very specific idea of exactly what the goal actually is. So we want to be at 3.2 million with a $427,000, gross profit margin. We want to have 42% gross profit percentage off of our jobs, and we want to have 2 project managers fully operating in the field with the owner out of the day-to-day. That is a very specific goal. So
is that one goal?
That would be 3 or 4 different goals written in your strategic plan in the goal setting section for the year, right? So that's where we want to go as a company.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I really trying to get people thinking about is, as they're building any goal, to use this thing called SMARTY. Stands for specific, which is the one I just covered. So specific goals, measurable goals, attainable goals, realistic goals, time-phased goals, and Y stands for what. On the SMARTY side stands for why are you doing what you're doing. And so if you have something that's specific like that, if you have something that's measurable. So if you notice that goal I just gave you has numbers in it, right? You can now measure along the way whether or not you're hitting, right? Otherwise, it's like midway through the year, I want to be more successful. I want to make more money. Like, are you on the way to making more? Like, you don't know what that means. But if you want to make $427,000 and you're at 220, you know you're probably midway through the year. You're probably midway going to make where you're trying to get to, right?
We interrupt this podcast today to talk to you very quickly about Tradie Web Guys content creation program. That program has been designed specifically for trade-based organizations as a way that you guys as trade business owners can start creating content that enables you to engage better with your customers and your potential customers. It will enable you to build trust and build rapport because what you're doing is you're investing in educating them. Biggest problem that we see with our customers today is that they're not regularly updating their websites. And that's a problem because first of all, the search engines are looking for that. And second of all, potential customers are also looking for it. Tradie Web Guys content creation program has been specifically designed to help you get regular, relevant content on your website consistently every month. We know that it's hard when you're out there on the tools, and we know that sometimes you don't always have the time to be able to do these things yourself. So we're taking it off your hands for you. It's a service that we're offering for you guys. We want to make sure that you're getting this done because we know how important it is. Anyway, head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/content, fill in the form, and one of our representatives will come back to you.
The next one is A for attainable. A lot of people get their ego in the way when they're building a business plan. They say, oh, why didn't we do that last year? I don't know. We could do way better next year. And they get all excited and they build this big goal. And then they break it down to go hit it. And week to week, within 6 months, they're way off. And the whole team gets demoralized. And nobody's hitting their weekly goals anymore. And there's no point in even having a goal if it's not attainable. So you need to be pretty just like down to earth. Like, is this something, a little step up from last year that we can go achieve? And then the R of Smarties. R stands for relevant. So I think I said realistic before, but it's relevant. How relevant is this goal to your business? How many things, and I'll just say this to everyone listening out there, how many things have you done last year that you maybe even spent a month on that got you nowhere? So I'm talking about this, that employee that you made a rushed hire on. I'm talking about that big commercial job or project you got excited about that made you no money. I'm talking about that system that you put in place for the company that nobody ever even used. Like, we as entrepreneurs often have what I call entrepreneur ADD. Stands for like another darn distraction, right? Yeah. Whether you physically have ADD like I do, or you just have entrepreneurial ADD, a lot of us suffer from that. And it's because there's so many opportunities out there, and we need to look at like what is actually relevant to our goals. Are we going to attach things to the company that are relevant, or are we going to get distracted? So R stands for relevant. T stands for time phased. It's basically saying, look, most of us crammed for our final exams in university or high school, and we're doing the same thing in our business. We're waiting till the very last minute to try and get everything done all at once. And in business, unfortunately, you just can't do that at scale. You can't go produce $1 million in a month, right? Like you have to pace that out throughout the year, and you need to have time frames to all of this that you can achieve mini goals along the way. And then the last one, Y, Smarty goals. So the Y part of it, it kind of approaches it from a different angle and says, if you look at all those other ones I was just talking about, they're very headspace done. Like, these are the numbers. This is what we're measuring. This is the time to hit that. Y is a bit more of the heart stuff. It's like, what do you actually care about? And why are you growing this business the way you're growing it? Because if you don't have a very clear why, you're going to get lost real fast. I've probably cried every year I've run a business. Like, literally, like, I've pushed myself to tears. And there's times in my business where, and I'm sure everyone listening, you can reflect on this one time. I want you to do this in your mind. When was the last time you were sitting in your office, driving to a job site, whatever it was, and you're like, why the fuck am I doing what I'm doing?
Yeah.
And you don't even have an answer. You're just numb and you're pissed. And when you're in those states of mind and you don't have a clear why, you didn't think about when you started this business, what was important to you, when you started the year, what was really important to you, you can get derailed pretty fast. And you can give up and you can stop. And you kind of never rebound from that properly. But when you have a very clear why and a passion behind what you're doing, and you've thought about it ahead of time, you've written it down, and it's in your mind every day, that stuff can come up and you can kind of breathe a bit more. And you're like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Because 6 years ago, we started this business to support the family. Because my old employer used to be shitty to their employees, and I want to be better to my people. because the last company I used to work with used to do shitty work, and I want to provide a service to my customers that I can be proud of every day, because I had experiences in my life when I was younger that now make me better, and I want to prove that every single day. So what if we just lost 10 grand on that one job and my 4 guys quit? This is a part of the journey that I decided to be on.
Yeah.
Right. And that gets you through those moments. So goals built with those components, those elements, are very robust, like goals that usually people will not only set up and properly, but they'll actually achieve, because they're specific, they're measurable, they're attainable, they're relevant to where you're going, you've timed it out, and you've got a clear drive and a passion, a why behind the whole thing. So those are the components of a goal when you're setting up.
So when we're creating our one-page strategic plan, does it all start and stem down like a tree from the goal?
Yes.
Smarty you got, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So once you've developed the goal, that's sometimes arguably the hardest part, because it's kind of like, okay, like we really need to think through where we're going, what the numbers need to be, how we're going to get there, all the little components. Now you can sit back and just stare at the goal and say, okay, what are all the like initiatives that need to happen for this goal to become real? So I'll give you some examples. Let's say you're running a business, it's $1 million, you're running all the sales and production yourself, and you're wanting to get to 1.5. And you're like, I am maxed at $1 million. Okay, well, you probably need a project manager, maybe an administrator, or maybe you need a salesperson. But one of your initiatives could be to hire one of these key roles. So you know what? I'm great at sales. I got the office down pat, but I'm not the greatest with production, and I probably should hire someone to do that. Okay, so that could be your first hire. And one of your initiatives for the year is to hire a project manager to take off 20 hours a week of your workload, or whatever that is. Mm-hmm. That becomes an initiative. So you stare at your goal and you develop 3 to 5 to maybe max 6 initiatives, right? You might say, you know what, we've got lots of people in the business and things are working, but everything's on paper. And I've seen all these cool systems online where we could put in a project management software. This is the year to do it. Okay, one of our initiatives is to put in a project management software. So the initiative section that we have everyone fill out really is the building blocks that allow that goal to become real. An initiative isn't work 20 more hours, right? Like an initiative is a fundamental component of the company that now works for you, right, and is now functional for the rest of the business's life. Mm-hmm. So you figure out what initiatives, which ones are you going to put in this year? You might have 20 over the next 5 years you want to put in, but what 5 are you going to put in this year that are most relevant to that next stage of business?
It's kind of like reverse engineering. So you sort of got the goal there, then you go, okay, well, in order to get here, I need to do blah, blah, blah.
Yep, totally. So from there, you have all your initiatives. Now you're like, okay, what are we doing this quarter? And so we try and break things down to like quarterly rocks is what we call them. And we're saying now, okay, out of all these initiatives, we need to, select our project manager, maybe select the software that we're going to be working with, but we won't maybe have them fully in their role yet. So quarter 1 is your rocks could be, generate enough applications, start an application generation system to get enough apps for this project manager, have them hired. Another set of rocks could be research all the CRM and project management softwares that are relevant to your industry, and select one and start with the initial training to know how to use it. So these are rocks. These are little pieces of the bigger initiative that you might do along the way within that year. You might have had another initiative of, say, starting a marketing campaign that you do throughout the summer, but that initiative didn't get done in that first quarter because it's not relevant yet. That might start next quarter, and that'll be next quarter's rocks. So that kind of makes sense.
Okay.
So again, like you said, that breakdown, you're just slowly breaking it down.
I did recently we did a podcast with Ed Plant, who's one of the Trading Mate Pro experts. Actually, his background's military, and he's got a very similar framework that he uses from his days in the military, and they call it the one-page or street plan, I think they call it. And basically, in the military, a street plan is the simple thing that you give out to your team, so everyone's on the same page and what they need to do and what they need to follow. And he's sort of taking that and implementing it into business. And it's very similar to what you say there. It's basically taking like a 3-year goal and breaking that down into 1-year goals, taking the 1-year goal, breaking that down into quarterly goals, taking the quarterly goals, breaking them down into monthly goals and then daily actions and all this kind of stuff. And it's pretty useful. I've been using it a lot and it's been great.
Totally. Because what happens is long term, if you do this right and you break it all the way down to what am I going to do this week, you schedule 5 hours a week to do 1 or 2 of those things, right? Mm-hmm. You can't hire a guy in a week, but you can post on, a couple of key recruiting sites. You can do, put a little 3 hours in to do interviews. Like, you can put time in to do certain pieces that directly relate to the long-term goal. And I think it's hard for people sometimes if you don't do this. You can say, I'm going to work on my business this week, but you have no idea if what you're working on is actually relevant to the long term if you haven't taken the time to break it down in this fashion. You're just working on the business. Whether that helps you in the future or not, I guess you'll go find out.
And in the next episode, we're going to be talking more about structuring your company for productivity. And I'm guessing in that episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about what you just said then, how to frame that week and how to structure your deliverables, I suppose, or the bite-sized chunks. Is that right?
Yeah. The next talk is a lot about your team. How do you get your team all aligned on goals so that everybody every week knows if they're delivering an ROI to the company or not? Right. Yeah. So cool. It'll focus a lot on that. And it really, I will say this, it utilizes the strategic plan, because if you have these key numbers and you know what you're trying to hit and you know what the breakdown looks like, you can now get your team behind you on that. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. And so what have we missed here in terms of building your one-page strategic plan? Like, basically what I've taken so far is you've got to get perspective over your larger goal and make it a SMARTY goal. So something that's specific, it's measurable, it's attainable, it's relevant, it's got a time phase to it. And of course, the mindset stuff behind, why the hell are we doing this? Why do we want to achieve this goal? What else have we got here?
I guess the final thought is, it's great to build all this and to put all the time into this, but you have to do quarterly reviews. So we, as our company and most of our team that, the companies we coach, they have pre-established quarterly review time. So every quarter there's a day, or even just a half day if need be, where they're reviewing all how they did. So what did we implement? What didn't we implement? How far along are we? Okay, what's next quarter's rocks now? And so you can readjust every quarter. And having that keeps you accountable and keeps you on pace for what you're trying to hit. What I will say about this, after years of doing this, everything tends to, especially in your first couple of years of doing this, everything you tend to plan out tends to take 2 to 3 times as long and cost 2 to 3 times as much as you thought it was going to. Right. So be kind to yourself in this. Like, don't be like, oh my God, we didn't get it. Like we only got half of it done. It's like, good, you got half of it done. It's half more than you would have had you not planned this stuff out. Yeah,
exactly. And I'm curious too, like, do you find sometimes the quarterly review, I mean, I know you guys are really, like you say it's a quarterly review, but I know you and I know the way you operate. Like your quarterly review is broken down into almost daily metrics. Like, I've seen your spreadsheets. Like I find if you're measuring things quarterly, and if you're measuring the goals on a quarterly basis, it's almost too much of a gap to then, if you are behind, chase up. So can you break that down into what you actually do?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about it a lot in the next session about what's called GSNR, goal setting and review meetings, and those are weekly meetings with you and your staff. But they are a little bit different. Like, GSNR is like very numbers based. It's very much looking at like how many leads do we need this week versus how many did we generate. It's very like looking at the stats of the company. This is a little bit more project based. This is a little bit more like, we got to spend time hiring key staff, putting in this project management software, getting this marketing campaign up and running. And you want to build that as like project time for the company. And your strategic plan, it certainly involves your numbers. Like, we have to hit a certain number by the end of the quarter. But really the review time is looking at, okay, what projects did we implement? Which ones we didn't? If you're behind on numbers, okay, let's problem solve what we need to do differently. So if we're only able to do 6 quotes a week and our quoting system is making us do 8 quotes a week, do we need to hire another person? Do we need to do 1-hour quotes versus 2-hour quotes? You can talk about that in your quarterly review to try and get next quarter more efficient. So it's really about strategy and the bigger picture strategy every quarter. So, yeah.
Well, it's good to clarify that. I don't want everyone to think that, all you need to do is have 4 meetings a year.
No, yeah. So beyond this, we're going to get into the next session. We also, on top of that, with our team, have every week, we have a goal setting meeting that kind of guides us and keeps us accountable.
Okay. Well, on that, why don't we wrap this one up? We're going to come back in the following episode, and we're going to talk about how to structurize your business, your company, your organization for maximum productivity. Where we're going to get a bit granular, I suppose, to metrics, meetings, keeping everyone accountable, blah, blah, blah. Sound good?
Awesome. Sound good.
Rock and roll. Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to the siteshed.com, where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from the show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.